All right, tonight, whatever is left of the Iranian regime and the IRG remains defiant. But thankfully, they're not always accurate. As I just mentioned, one of their suspected drones hit a parking lot next to an empty U.S. consulate in Abu Dhabi. And today, the president and his cabinet worked to reassure the public that Operation Epic Fury is going according to plan.
They have no Navy. It's been knocked out. They have no Air Force. It's been knocked out. They have no air detection. That's been knocked out. Their radar has been knocked out. And just about everything's been knocked out.
Our objectives remain as they've been identified from the beginning. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, and we will now not allow Iran to hide behind the immunity of a massive short-term ballistic missile inventory. CENTCOM, in a joint operations, is carrying out a systematic destruction of their missile belt, destruction of their launchers, and destruction of their ability to make these, as well as the destruction of their Navy.
Meanwhile, we're learning more about why Iran has broadened the battlefield to hit prominent Gulf neighbors. And what is becoming a major test of wills. The Iranians believe that by inflicting maximum economic pain on the region and on the United States, well, the Gulf nations will soon pressure President Trump to declare victory and just head home. Now, 20% of all oil traffic worldwide travels through the Strait of Hormuz, so disrupting that creates global shockwaves. We've seen it already, and we're already feeling the pinch here at home.
What we've seen today alone is the national average for gas prices, $3.11. That is up 12 cents since yesterday. That is the steepest rise since March of 2022. And now gas prices today are higher than they were a year ago.
Yeah, well, he's not going to like that, President Trump. But the president, look, he knows that the price fluctuations are temporary. So their message to the Iranians is this: we determine the timetable, not you, and you ain't seen nothing yet.
You're going to really begin to perceive a change in the scope and in the intensity of these attacks as, frankly, the two most powerful air forces in the world take apart this terroristic regime and defang it and take away its ability to threaten its neighbors.
And Rubio took some incoming of his own today. The press and Democrats seized on comments he made yesterday about what precipitated the strikes last Saturday.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties.
So he says that, and then the instant narrative on the left and among some on the right became, you see, it is Israel's war, not ours.
Did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready, and we were ready.
Now, clearly, the president saw an opportunity. He assessed the very real risks. He did a cost-benefit analysis, and then he decided to take preemptive action. Of course, the incoming that Rubio was taking on this, it's to be expected. They needed to clarify this.
Your quote is about, we knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that would precipitate an attack.
Yeah, no, I understand. But listen, all right, let me understand. But let me answer, because this is my press conference. If you tell the President of the United States that if we don't go first, we're going to have more people killed and more people injured, the President's going to go first. That's what he did. That's what the President will always do. They are hiding behind these missiles and hiding behind these drones. They wanted to reach a point where you couldn't touch them, and then they could do whatever the hell they wanted with their nuclear program. And there is no way in the world that this terroristic regime was going to get nuclear weapons, not under Donald Trump's watch.
Now, when you listen to the entire exchange of Rubio's yesterday, a fair person heard that President Trump was willing to put his entire presidency on the line for our security, even if the nuclear threat was not imminent, and even if he was going to get just scorched from a lot of critics back home. But apparently, for the media, none of that was good enough.
Why did it have to happen this weekend?
This weekend presented a unique opportunity to take joint action against this threat. And we wanted this to have maximum success. We want this operation to be successful at achieving its objectives.
Will the U.S. attack about no matter what Israel is planning to do?
The president acted on the timing that gave us the highest chance of success. And that's what you're seeing play out right now. You're seeing it play out right now, and you'll see it in the days to come. We will systematically take apart their missile program. We will destroy their ability to sponsor terrorism, by the way. We will destroy their factories. We will destroy their Navy. Those objectives are going to be met. We're well on our way to meeting them. It will not be easy. There will be a price to pay for it, but that is a much lower price to pay than having a nuclear-armed Iran.
Now, we're also beginning to learn more about what went inside those U.S.-Iranian negotiations that broke down over the issue of nuclear enrichment.
Both the Iranian negotiators said to us directly, with no shame, that they controlled 460 kilograms of 60%, and they're aware that that could make 11 nuclear bombs, and that was the beginning of their negotiating stance.
They sound about as reasonable as Hakeem Jeffries, who shows us what he really cares about in his comments. And unlike with Trump, it's not the safety of the American people. Because even with heightened threats to the homeland now, Jeffries refuses to vote to fully fund the DHS, and then he flat out lies.
Donald Trump launches an unauthorized war in the Middle East. He characterizes it as endless, and then wants to use his unauthorized war as an excuse to continue spending taxpayer dollars to brutalize or kill American citizens by continuing to unleash ICE. The whole thing is insane. Make it make sense, because it does not.
Just a complete fraud. I'm sorry. The real debate here, and you saw it in his comments, is not between the interventionists and the isolationists, or even between Trump and some elements of his base. The real debate, the real conflict here is between those who believe America is good and those who believe fundamentally America is corrupt and evil. Because if you believe the latter, like sadly most Democrats, the media, the academia do, you believe that the U.S. may not use its military unless we are advancing international interests and internationally approved. But if you believe America is special, that she's worth saving, you believe that our military exists to keep the American people safe and our interests abroad secure, even if the world will criticize us down the road.
Let me explain to you guys this in simple English. Okay? Iran is run by lunatics, religious fanatic lunatics. They have an ambition to have nuclear weapons. They intend to develop those nuclear weapons behind a program of missiles and drones and terrorism that the world will not be able to touch them for fear of those things. The world will be a safer place when these radical clerics no longer have access to these weapons.
Oh, and by the way, just hours ago, the NATO Secretary General told us not to believe the headlines that the entire world is against the U.S. here.
I was on the phone with many leaders over the weekend and also early this week, and I clearly sensed that taking out nuclear capability, taking out the ballistic missile capability, and also Khamenei gone, this is applauded by many of my colleagues in NATO.
The NATO Secretary's comments confirm that America and the West are safer because Trump decided to order military action when he did. Now, Trump's opponents here, you have to understand this. It's really important that you get this. They are not angry because they have a better solution. They were happy just to kick this down the road for future generations to deal with. They're angry because they do not want America under Donald Trump to succeed. Heck, they're still angry at the U.S. men's Olympic hockey team, for goodness sakes. Good faith debates about military intervention, that's one thing. But when you are hoping for American failure to save political face, you're just pathetic. And that's the angle. Here
Operation Epic Fury is taking a serious toll on the mullahs. Trump says the Iranians want to talk, but it's too late.
They have no Navy. It's been knocked out. They have no Air Force. It's been knocked out. They have no air detection. That's been knocked out. Their radar has been knocked out. And just about everything's been knocked out.
1,000 Iranian fighters have also been knocked out. And that doesn't include the Ayatollah and his lieutenants. Earlier today, the remnants of the regime were holding a vote to pick the next supreme leader when the meeting ended early due to an Israeli missile. The president says the damage was substantial and a third wave of attack is in the works.
Do you have someone in mind right now? Because you said all the people you did have in mind have been taken out. What do you think?
Well, most of the people we had in mind are dead. So, you know, we had some in mind from that group that is dead. And now we have another group. They may be dead also, based on reports. So I guess you have a third wave coming in. Pretty soon we're not going to know anybody.
The response from Tehran's been a mix of short-range missiles and cheap drones thrown haphazardly at our allies. U.S. Central Command's hunting down their launchers, taking them out one by one without apology or hesitation. The second they fire off a missile, we know exactly where it comes from and can take out the launch pad. Today, another Iranian drone struck near a U.S. consulate in Dubai. Thankfully, no injuries. And a CIA station at our embassy in Saudi Arabia has just been hit. Small amount of damage, no casualties. But the Saudis now say a line's been crossed. Sources believe the kingdom is very close to deploying its own air force to join the fight. Soon the Saudis will be flying sorties with the Israelis. Think about that. The entire Mideast is united against this terroristic regime. Sources tell us the next 24 hours is going to be intense. Rubio was on Capitol Hill today saying, get ready.
You're about to see, we're going to unleash Chang on these people in the next few hours and days. You're going to really begin to perceive a change in the scope and in the intensity of these attacks as, frankly, the two most powerful air forces in the world take apart this terroristic regime and defang it.
The Arab world's united, and now the Islamic Republic doesn't stand much of a chance. Trump's even been on the phone with the Kurds. We might be able to arm them and use them as boots on the ground. Europe, on the other hand, needs to be better.
And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it, but we don't have to. But they were unfriendly, so we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain. I'm not happy with the UK either. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Now we know why we can't rely on NATO for Greenland. They won't let us use their bases to fight the #1 state sponsor of terror. The United States is doing the world a favor, and the administration says it was now or never.
Listen, let me explain to you guys this in simple English, okay? Iran is run by lunatics, religious fanatic lunatics. They have an ambition to have nuclear weapons. They intend to develop those nuclear weapons behind a program of missiles and drones and terrorism that the world will not be able to touch them for fear of those things. And this is the weakest they've ever been. Now is the time to go after them.
Trump's top negotiator, Steve Witkoff, says the Iranians walked up to the negotiating table dangerously cocky.
In that first meeting, both the Iranian negotiators said to us directly, with no shame, that they controlled 460 kilograms of 60%, and they're aware that that could make 11 nuclear bombs, and that was the beginning of their negotiating stance. So they were proud of it. They were proud that they had evaded all sorts of oversight protocols to get to a place where they could deliver 11 nuclear bombs.
The president said the United States needed to shoot first.
You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that.
The White House says these are the objectives. Don't wait for Iran to get a nuke. Nuclear blackmail, no fun. And they might even launch first. Their ballistic missiles needed to go. They can already reach Europe. And in a few years, they could reach New York. Obama gave the Iranians the money to build the missiles they're shooting at us right now. What a disgrace. Their Navy must be eliminated so they can't choke off oil flows and jack up prices and cause inflation. Their terror proxies, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, have done too much damage. And the Chinese have been financing the Iranian military and buying their cheap sanctioned oil at a discount. That ends now. Iran and Venezuela, that would make 2 petro-dictatorships we flipped. They're proxies of Russia and China. And now we control most of the world oil market and kicked the Chinese and Russians out of the Middle East. Beijing and Moscow haven't lifted a finger to help their ally in Tehran. The whole world sees that. And all the Chinese missile defense batteries they sold to mullahs, we took them out on day 1. Made in China, you get what you pay for. This war is going well. It's ahead of schedule, but it's early. In the short term, high oil prices are going to make things a little more expensive. But Trump's promising to ensure shipping through the Straits and directing the Navy to escort oil tankers to keep energy flowing. The Trump administration is basically now the new Lloyds of London. So buckle up. Now we have full control of the skies. Iranian missile launches have gone from about 100 a day to now just 20. The U.S. Air Force has just begun significant bombing runs targeting every inch of the regime's military and political infrastructure. B-52s currently conducting a shock and awe campaign over the Iranian capital, targeting Republican Guard command and control nodes, as well as weapons depots and missile assembly facilities. We pray for our service members putting their lives on the line and hope that Operation Epic Fury continues to be a success.
And welcome to Hannity. This is a Fox News alert. Tonight we are tracking the primary results out of North Carolina and Texas. Jasmine Crockett now has a lead in the Senate Democratic primary. We're cheering for Jasmine Crockett. Anyway, but first, smoke continues to fill the sky over Tehran after a nonstop barrage from the U.S. and Israel and their jets. And with all of Iran's air defense systems now down and eliminated, the scale and intensity of these strikes has picked up in a major way. According to reports, the U.S. is now using B-1 and massive B-52 bombers, which deliver a massive, powerful blow. One senior admiral now reports that nearly 2,000 targets in Iran have been hit. 17 Iranian ships are now at the bottom of the sea, including one submarine. Meanwhile, as Iranian officials gathered to choose a successor, this is the greatest part of the story all day, for the now deceased, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. An uninvited jet from Israel decimated the location while Iranian officials were counting the votes. In other words, the council that gathered to pick the next, quote, supreme leader were also wiped out, all of them. Now, just a historic and incredible show of superior military intelligence and might. But tonight, Iran continues to launch missiles and drones at civilian locations all across the Middle East in what is a desperate, dumb, counterproductive attempt to turn every Arab state in the region now against the United States. However, that would be backfiring spectacularly. Here with more, he's in Cyprus tonight, which has also been targeted by Iran. Our own Nate Foy is standing by. Nate, I think everybody in the region now officially hates Iran and probably cheering for Israel and the U.S.
Oh, that's absolutely right, as they continue targeting their regional countries here, Sean. And tonight, Qatar's defense ministry says the largest U.S. airbase in the Middle East has been hit by an Iranian ballistic missile. This is the El Udeid airbase. Thankfully, nobody has been injured in that attack. Unfortunately, 6 U.S. service members have been killed so far in this campaign, and tonight the Pentagon announced the names of 4 of them. So take a look at your screen right here. Captain Cody Cork, 35 years old, of Winter Haven, Florida. Sergeant First Class Noah Teachins, 42 years old, of Bellevue, Nebraska. Sergeant First Class Nicole Amore, 39 years old, of White Bear Lake, Minnesota. And Sergeant Declan Cody, just 20 years old, of West Des Moines, Iowa. We thank them for their service. May they rest in peace. Also tonight, Sean, an Iranian drone struck the parking lot outside the U.S. consulate in Dubai. You can see it caused a fire. Nobody was injured here. But as you mentioned, Israel says they've dropped 4,000 bombs on Iran just in the past 4 days, and they landed a devastating blow today by striking the Iranian Supreme Council as it was counting the votes for a new supreme leader. Israel says it also killed the commander of Iran's Quds force in Lebanon. U.S. Central Command also shared this video of U.S. forces destroying Iranian drones. This will be crucial as Iran's drones are more difficult to defend against than the missiles. The U.S. does continue targeting Iranian ballistic missile positions as well, though. President Trump claims that Iran is running out of missile launchers. The U.S. has struck more than 1,700 targets so far. But again, Iran just continues firing on its neighbors. These missile interceptions come from the UAE. Iran also targeted Saudi Arabia. They hit the U.S. embassy in Riyadh today, twice in the city of Dhahran, where there's a U.S. consulate, and the Saudi state oil company is located. But speaking of attacks on oil infrastructure, or I guess their lack of an ability to do that, tonight U.S. Central Command said that there are 0 Iranian ships in the Strait of Hormuz, the Persian Gulf, or the Gulf of Oman, as their ability to target and attack U.S. positions continues to get decimated. Sean, we'll send it back to you.
All right. Nate Foy in Cyprus tonight. Thank you. We are less than a week into Operation Epic Fury. Democrats, what is predictable and pathetic, are now looking for ways to politicize this military operation. Some now claim that the U.S. had no justification to strike Iran. These Democrats claim with a straight face there was no imminent danger from the rogue regime that says death to America. Now, today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio responded forcefully. Take a look.
Let me explain to you guys this in simple English, okay? Iran is run by lunatics, religious fanatic lunatics. They have an ambition to have nuclear weapons. They intend to develop those nuclear weapons behind a program of missiles and drones and terrorism that the world will not be able to touch them for fear of those things. And this is the weakest they've ever been. Now is the time to go after them. The president made the decision to go after them, take away their missiles, take away their navy, take away their drones, take away their ability to make those things so that they can never have a nuclear weapon. That's why the president made this decision. It was the right decision, and the world will be a safer place when these radical clerics no longer have access to these weapons. You see how they're using them now. Imagine how they would use them a year from now if they had more of these.
Imagine if they had nuclear weapons, how they would use those. For the past several days, Iran's terrorist leadership demonstrated this threat, hitting American bases, killing American service members, even launching strikes into civilian locations. According to President Trump, Iran was preparing to launch an attack on Americans in the region, which, by the way, is not at all unprecedented. Iranian-backed terrorists murdered and maimed American soldiers in Iraq for years. They have launched multiple strikes against U.S. bases. They have routinely tried and in some cases succeeded in assassinating Americans, and numerous American citizens have been abducted by Iran. Now, to top it all off, according to the special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, Iran's leaders believed it was their inalienable right to enrich uranium and build nuclear weapons. But blinded by politics, their hatred for President Trump, well, liberal, leftist, radical Democrats, they cannot bring themselves to see the writing on the wall. Here now with the full report from the White House tonight is Aisha Hasni is with us. Aisha.
Sean, the president isn't just managing the strikes on Iran. He's also trying to manage single-handedly the global reaction to these strikes, especially when you consider what's happening with the energy markets. The president announcing today that the U.S. will ensure all ships that are trying to move through the Gulf right now, especially those having to do with energy, those will be insured by the U.S. And it comes as oil prices soar, with the president saying those prices are going to drop as soon as this conflict ends. Brand new Fox News polling today reveals Americans are split 50-50 on these strikes as of right now. Meanwhile, today, while meeting with the German chancellor, President Trump took another aim at another ally, threatening to stop all trade with Spain after it refused to allow U.S. troops to use its bases for those strikes. Trump also answering questions about who might lead the country next. He says the people he had in mind keep dying. And here's what he said about the exiled Crown Prince.
Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, is he an option at all in your mind?
I guess he is. Some people like him, and we haven't been thinking about too much about that. It would seem to me that somebody from within maybe would be more appropriate.
And Sean, this is really important to keep in mind. The Wall Street Journal is now reporting the president may be weighing calling on some militia groups that are inside Iran to come and help them topple this regime. Apparently, he called the Kurds, leaders of the Kurdish forces in Iraq this weekend, a group that boasts some thousands of experienced soldiers along the Iran-Iraq border. So something to watch there. Sean?
All right, Ashen, thank you very much for that report. And we'll have much more on the Democratic Party's shameless hypocrisy, political grandstanding, in their own words.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Wow. Are we on? Good evening, everyone. So the attack on Iran is underway, and the U.S. military is calling it Operation Epic Fury. Yeah, not to be confused with Epic Furry, which is the operation to remove the hair from Rashida Tlaib's face. I said don't go in. The president vowed to step up strikes on Iran and warned the big one is coming, which is the same thing Jerry Nadler yells as a warning in the men's room after his 2-burrito lunch. Don't get into that blast zone. The Ayatollah is dead, of course. And following that news, jubilant crowds pulled down a statue of the deposed leader. But don't worry, it was returned to its rightful owners at Columbia University. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Meanwhile, IDF missiles struck a location where Tehran's senior clerics met to elect a new Ayatollah. The remaining leaders are now questioning their choice of venue. In his obituary, the Washington Post described the Ayatollah as a man with a bushy white beard and easy smile. It reminds us of the time they described one German leader as a sassy painter. Sassy. Too soon? In other news, during a deposition, House leaders asked Bill Clinton why he was photographed in a hot tub with a bikini-clad woman. He said it was because there was a line to get in on the sex swing. It's like a trampoline in the neighborhood, you know, one family has it. As for his wife, during her deposition, an angry Hillary raised her fist and slammed the table. The last time Hillary slammed her fist on a table that hard, Monica ran out from under it. You guys. And finally, after he completed his deposition, Bill said the Epstein victims deserved healing. He even offered them a free back rub at Bubba's Magic Fingers massage parlor. He's got a side hustle. All right. For decades, what did you always hear? Politicos telling us we need to stop kicking the can down the road. And then they kick the can down the road. Just once I'd like someone to ask, how long is this damn road? It's the real strategy in D.C., not to solve problems, not to secure success. No, it's don't embarrass yourself. Don't ruffle any feathers. So what's changed? Trump, the first president in ages to say, I don't care. I don't kick cans, I crush them. So the playboy businessman who doesn't have 30 years of so-called Beltway experience and is so naive about how the world works, suddenly he makes things happen, and it's not complicated. Trump has a track record of being decisive, accountable to results, not ritual, action, not process. His catchphrase from The Apprentice was, "You're fired," not, "Let's regroup in Davos and don't forget to expense the whores." Look at the border crisis. He gets into office and the border snapped shut like women's legs when Kilmeade wears a tank top. In Venezuela, that can wasn't just crushed, it was flattened. And when it was, 80 million barrels of oil squirted right into America's lap. Iran was the can-kicking Olympics full of cocktail party diplomacy that involved pallets of cash, weakness disguised as patience. But Trump, he refuses to postpone every tough conversation in order to chase the polls. Other politicians, they're famous for putting their proverbial finger in the air to see which way the political winds are blowing. The only time Trump has put his finger in the air was to flip the bird and mouth F you to a heckler. Real leaders don't say, hold off until Admiral Levine changes his pantyhose. And Trump's decisiveness has freed us from a prison of two ideas, the notion that the U.S. must either be entrenched in decade-long wars or not involved at all. That's like saying you can either watch Jesse Watters' Primetime or record it for later. Both are stupid ideas. Trump says he's not going to start wars, he's going to end them. And Iran has been waging war for decades against us and its own people. And yes, Trump promised no new wars. It's a great line, which he adhered to in his first term, so he gained our trust. He's not a bomb-dropping fanatic like the other guy. So when he makes an exception, maybe hear him out, especially since he's been harping on Iran for decades. He wants to get rid of the bad guys in what he calls a strike. Surgical, high probability of success, limited exposure, maximum impact. What Kamala used to call the opposite of everything I represent. But maybe Trump should try saying, look, I know what I said before, but you got to trust me on this, and here's why. Trump has built a massive bank of trust, so he should use it. Because when you leave it to the other voices, you get a whiff of WMD. Fact is, some people voted for no more never-ending wars, and they have a right to be miffed. But knowing this now, would they really have voted for Kamala instead? Then there are those who voted for the whole Trump package, and you roll with his instincts. The more decisive he is, the better he is. And to some, this Iran action looks like nation building, but for others, the nation's already there. It was just tied down like Gulliver. And after 45 years, Trump said, let's cut those ropes. So how long will this bold move last? The truth is, nobody knows. We do know that the old way didn't help anyone, unless he wanted to sell used Jeeps in Kabul. You know, they used to call Trump inexperienced because experience in D.C. meant great at kicking cans. Well, he's not kicking cans, he's kicking ass, and that's something we haven't seen in ages. Welcome, tonight's guest. He doesn't do encores because no one ever asked. Comedian Dave Landau. Like any good Benz, he costs a fortune to get serviced. Former State Department official and executive director of the Foundation for Freedom Online, Mike Benz. She loves free expression, which is why we don't pay her. New York Times bestselling author, Fox News contributor, Kat Jim. And he makes his older female fans feel like they're 80 again. Former NWA world champion, host of Planet Tyrus podcast, Tyrus. Dave, not many people know this, but you are a foreign policy expert, aren't you?
That's correct.
Yeah, you do a lot of research on your own time.
Tons.
Yeah. So what's your take on this?
Okay, on the entire thing?
Yes.
Oh.
And in 5 words.
In 5 words.
No.
I'll be honest, I was surprised that they took out Iran's Navy.
Yeah.
I didn't know, or at least naval ships. I didn't see them as water people. I would assume, I would think that it would be hard to swim in drapes.
They don't use flying carpets anymore.
Oh, they don't?
No, they don't.
I go by all stereotypes.
Yes, you do. Why did they take out Ahmadinejad? Isn't that weird? It was like an afterthought. It was like, oh yeah, they also killed Ahmadinejad. He was president like 10 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and also, what I really don't get is they took down the statue of the guy.
Yeah.
But every supreme leader looks like him.
Yeah.
Why bother? You just have to make a new one that's going to look exactly the same.
That's true.
He doesn't even change hats.
Yeah, the Ayatollahs are they're fungible.
They are.
They're fungible. Mr. Benz. All right. I am a little bit like cautiously optimistic. I place all my hope on the fact that Trump gets bored really easily, so he never gets involved in something that he can't quickly get out of. Is that a fair summation?
I hope that's the case. You're talking about a nation of 90 million people. There's 80 million Shiite Muslims. There's in that country. There's a 250 million around the world. This is going to have long-term implications, and there will be bright, shiny objects emanating from this that will force the president's attention. Whether he gets bored of it or not, it will. I think the fallout from this will be something we'll be living with for a long time.
Really, you're not bullish on this move.
I think that the initial forays into every major military action come with the kind of Team America, World Police, America, F yeah kind of thing. Right. This was our bombs over Baghdad. This was Afghanistan. This was Iraq. In this case, I think everyone is wowed right now over the overwhelming firepower and the incredible capability of our brave men and women. Even in the best case scenario, there's going to have to be some form of nation building, and that is going to be a decades-long process.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, though. I guess I look at Trump differently than I do these previous things in the past. And maybe I'm being too generous, but I look at like what he did to the nukes, what he did to Maduro, Soleimani. He always seems like he's very selfish about his time, about our money and our blood and treasure. He doesn't like. You think he hasn't weighed this fully through?
I think this is a surprising action because it is the opposite of what has been done in the past. Mm-hmm. In 2018 with Syria, when there was the allegations of sarin gas attacks, there were military strikes that were done. It was his first time doing that. He was very deeply applauded by the media, but they were targeted, limited. Mm-hmm. When we took out Soleimani, that was a single strike against one military leader. When the Fordo strikes happened, they were targeted, limited. We're now up to over 2,000 sites that have been struck, as well as not just the Ayatollah, but the entire leadership, over 50 of the top government, military, financial, even judges. It is going to be difficult to see a way that does not involve hundreds of thousands of casualties, which is unlike the kind of maneuvers we've seen from Trump's restraint in the past.
Yeah, I heard he even took out the band Flock of Seagulls. Because of the song.
Iran
so
far away. So far away.
Yeah. Never liked that song either. All right, Kat. It was a terrible joke, but Mike is so serious, and I just grilled him for 5 minutes. I needed to get some levity in there, and it's you, Kat. It's you all over. He said no new war, no new forever wars. Did he betray the people?
Look, I agree with everything that Mike said. For me, it's impossible to tell, but you do know based on our involvement in this region in the past that things have kind of dragged on and on and on. And I am concerned about the exact same thing happening here. I'm married to somebody who fought in Afghanistan.
Me too.
And, well,
I'm joking.
I know, but it honestly was a very difficult thing for me to see what he went through when Afghanistan worked out the way that it did. I mean, he lost classmates there. He lost friends there. Spoken to a lot of veterans who, went through the same thing. And even many of the ones who came back, they never come back the same. And Trump himself said that it is a possibility that we took out a monster, but he could be replaced with someone who is bad also, right? So that is definitely my concern. I hope that I'm wrong. Maybe this will be the first time that this works, and we will have a democratic government in Iran in a month, or whatever people are cheering or hoping for. There's nothing in history that is showing me that that would be the case. I would love to be wrong, but it's not because I don't support the military or love my country. It's because I love the military so much, and I love my country so much. And points for honesty for Trump saying that, but those are the exact concerns that I have.
Tyrus.
Yo.
How was the 5 today?
Quieter, apparently. Look, when it comes to this situation, one thing I would like to point out, and I look at this situation with Iran as a mirror of the future for America. What we've seen in the last 4 years where there was this big attack on our freedoms, how we speak, and a huge attack on the Second Amendment. Everybody wanted to get rid of guns, guns, guns. The biggest problem that Iran is having when they have all these civilians who are tired of this, but what they did in their country is they made sure none of the civilians ever had rifles, couldn't defend themselves. So even if you had 50 of the remaining, or let's say 50,000 troops left, that's more than enough to control an entire population of people. So I think when you look at what other countries go through, be thankful we live in the place that we live, that we have in the Second Amendment, that we can put a militia together if the government pulled this type of that we're seeing over there. The other thing is that I'm a big guy on stats and patterns. President Trump, I think, has earned the right. His resume speaks that he's a peace-first president. We've seen it over and over again. We've seen it with what he was been trying to do with Russia and Ukraine. But here's the thing. I think he has put a team together that, although personally none of them actually ever get along, they're all about doing the job. Rubio, everyone else had an issue with Trump about doing the job. And I think we need to give them the grace period to do the job. We can start, I'll be the first one to throw criticism if it goes sideways, but allow him to do the job. And we're gonna understand information is gonna be tough because the mainstream media, doesn't matter what he does, they're gonna be anti-everything. The difference in this time, I feel more confident than in the situations in Afghanistan, was Trump's actions have called other Middle Eastern countries, which usually don't, all of a sudden Saudi Arabia's thinking about getting involved, and maybe they will, and other countries are starting to be like, no, enough of this. And that to me is very positive. Again, I'm not going to pretend to high chair quarterback military, but I would with what we saw what happened in Venezuela, what we're happening in Iran, what we're seeing happening, China's paying attention. I think this is a long thing where I think there will be a chance for him to leave, because he'll be able to leave it in the hands of the other Middle Eastern countries who are now invested and seem to be involved. And that's the big difference between before, I think.
All right.
This has got to be... I was just going to say quickly, you know who this has got to be super weird for? Liz Cheney.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Wait a minute.
Like, her family could only dream of this, and it was done by the guy she hates the most.
Exactly.
Well, that's what John Bolton said.
Yeah.
John Bolton said his only regret is that he wasn't able to persuade Trump to do that while he was the national security advisor.
What a time.
And Bill Kristol's lobbying against this.
Yeah, that's weird. Well, Crystal's gone nuts. I mean, but yeah, I think if you want Trump to do something, you tell them that nobody's been able to do it before. I think Iran was that thing that was pulsing. It's like a big giant boil on your arm. Why don't you lance it? And he goes, I'll lance it. And he just, and it was like, wow, that was easy. But the problem is there could be another boil underneath. You don't like my boil analogy.
I don't mind it. I was just picturing.
You could go with a hydrant too, like another head just keeps coming up and he cuts him off, which is less disgusting
Well, it's
for
like
our crowd.
If someone tells you no one's ever solved this Rubik's Cube, and you're like, well, have you tried putting a Patriot missile to blow it up?
Yes. That's a great idea.
Well, it's being tried as we speak.
Yeah, right.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.